Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it!
Welcome to another episode of the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and I don't have my brother with me today. I have instead a special guest co-host, Trucker Andy. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
I should say returning guest co-host. You have been on once before when we covered the band Clutch, and that was an episode where you introduced me to the band Clutch. What was the name of the album again? I'm sorry.
That one was Blast Tyrant.
That's right.
Yes.
Freaking amazing album. So that was a lot of fun because I got to listen to a band for the first time I'd never heard before. I listened to the album deeply, and I'm still listening to Clutch. I think they're fantastic. But I'm having you on again, and this time we both are familiar with the band Van Halen, correct?
Right. Yeah. Last time you let me pick, I got to say, this is my favorite band. This is the best album from the catalog. This time you suggested this. Obviously, we're both fans, but we definitely have a difference of opinion about the album, the band, I'm sure. But
well, we'll see. We'll see. The funny thing is, we have not really discussed anything. I think what you're referring to is I came to you and said, look, I want to do Van Halen with you. You like Van Halen? You're like, yeah. I said, well, pick, because I know older albums. I'm like, pick what you think is their best or favorite. You'll explain. I don't know what your reasons were. You said Van Halen's 1984, and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, are you a fan of Van Halen? I don't. That's totally snobby of me to say that. I'm not even saying anything disregarding this album. It's just I was almost sort of surprised, but that's okay because this album is huge for a reason. It's
right.
I guess, and don't take it this way, but Van Halen fans would understand what I'm about to say here. It was almost like you told me Black was your favorite Metallica album.
I was just gonna say I cannot help the era that and the circumstances that I grew up and was introduced to music in. And I was just talking about this with Kaylee when we were driving down to the Dabble house. And I can't let it go unsaid that I love the backdrop, by the way. This is I like how you customize it specifically for the episode. But to finish that thought, what I was telling her was when I was in 10th grade and I was discovering music, the Metallica Black album was the biggest album going. Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction was the biggest album going. Van Halen's Balance was brand new. And I didn't really have... a lot of people are lucky to have older siblings to sort of squire them into a musical taste and tell them what's cool before they know what's cool. And I didn't really have that. I found it in like some friends' older siblings and things like that. So when you turn on MTV in high school and Nothing Else Matters is number one, it's like, okay, I guess this is what's cool. And then it takes you a while to retroactively go back and discover that Black Sabbath is the end all be all. And, and that everything is informed after that by them. Yeah, that's my opinion. But to that end, it's just like, okay, this is kind of the Van Halen album that I discovered first.
Okay. No, that's fair. I mean, yeah, well, it's funny enough. It's the Van Halen album that I heard first for the first time, too. I don't know your age. You don't have to say your age, but in 1984...
I'm ashamed.
Stop it. You're a very handsome man. In 1984, I was 9 years old. So when this album came out, I was totally into music. At a very young age, I've always been into music. I mean, I was listening to Michael Jackson in 82. Like, I've always just loved music. I've always gravitated towards it. I've always enjoyed it. And so, yeah, I have two older siblings, and my brother, who's Jason, who I do this podcast with, he was, 2 years older than me. So him and his friends were listening to, Jump was everywhere. Let's be honest. The song Jump was everywhere. I was listening to Van Halen's Jump on my Fisher-Price radio. I had this Fisher-Price battery-operated radio. It was like a cheap ghetto blaster. I was able to put batteries in it. I put a tape. I put the tape in there, and I would blast it as loud as I could on my little Fisher-Price stereo on my bike, listening to the Jump in Panama. So I was like totally this was the band. And so when David left, obviously in 1985, even as a kid, I recognize like, what? I don't understand. How does the singer, like, because you're young at the same time, like you're thinking to yourself, why does the singer leave his, like, it didn't make sense to me that a singer leaves their, it's like a divorce.
Yeah.
For a kid, you're like, I can't believe they've left. And so when, I know I want to get your thoughts on this. So when 5150 came out with Sammy Hagar in 86, I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser. I'm now 11 years old. We started the Sammy or called Van Hagar years. But before we get to the Van Hagar years, let's go back again. So 84, this album. So are you saying now that 1984 is truly, because this is the worst of the best, so this is your favorite Van Halen album, hands down?
I'm a song guy. I latch on to songs. So in the catalog, because I think when I suggested this and you kind of balked at me, I said, well, what do you think the best album is? And when you told me, what did you say, Fair Warning? Or
well, for Dave Lee Ross era, I said Fair Warning. Yeah.
Okay. So then I was just like, well, maybe I've got this all wrong. And I went to look at the songs on Fair Warning, and God's honest truth. Well, in my opinion, it does contain the best Van Halen song to me, which is Unchained. Dollars to Donuts, with like the hits, the biggest hits are on 84. And there's not a lot of, so that's something that should be noted. There's not a lot of tracks on this. It's borderline not even an LP. It's almost an EP. Borderline. Right?
What is the rules for EP? Because you take away 84, the first whatever quote unquote song, it's 8 songs.
Yeah. So that's like
borderline. That must be borderline.
I think in this day and age, that wouldn't even qualify as an LP.
Yeah, and they did have shorter albums. I say they, like, their artists and bands had shorter albums back then, but they'd also release things more frequently, to be fair. For example, like, they released their debut album 78, and then just over a year later in 79, they're releasing Van Halen 2. Then 1980, Women Children First, and 81, Fair Warning. 80. So if you think about it, they release an album a year. If they wait 2 years and they can combine 2 of the albums and take off some of the filler songs or some of the cover songs, so they were kind of big on cover songs, which has always been my criticism of Van Halen with the David days. Do I ask the question?
I'm sticking to my guns. I'm sticking to my guns with this album, though. I
know, but are you a David or a Sammy guy?
Oh, obviously I'm a DLR guy at heart. I like some of the Sammys, like when Eddie died.
He's dead? Oh.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But like the solo that I hear when I think of Eddie is the end of Dreams. It's like real quick, the vocal melody a little bit, and then it goes into the lightning tapping, and it's only like 12 bars and it's done. That solo is like the quintessential Eddie solo to me. So I'm not saying that there's not value in the Van Hagar years, but when I think of Van Halen, I think I have to include David Lee Roth in it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be contrarian or bipartisan. I love both versions equally for different reasons. And I have children, so I can say that. I know what it's like to love something differently, but at the same level for different reasons. So I have, like, you can also not like something from a child. Like, I don't like that behavior from you, but I still love you. And that's the same with David and Sammy. There's things that Sammy brought to the table. Put it this way, there is some guitar work that Eddie does under the Sammy years that dwarfs stuff he did with David, because it's a different style of music. You're talking about the solos. My favorite, boy, this is a discussion. What is my favorite Van Halen album? I don't know if I really answered that. I did answer with David. It's Fair Warning. But with Sammy, it's I got to go 5150, his debut album. They shot out a cannon with that album, because on that album, the song 5150 just might be my favorite Van Halen song of all time.
That's
because the guitar work in that song is just... I can listen to that riff over and I just don't tire of it. So this is what makes Van Halen kind of complicated, is because people get really wrapped up in who's singing. It doesn't matter to some degree. Sorry, Gary. But I think Sammy drove Eddie to compose some incredible melodic and or hard rocking riffs that were both commercially successful and really amazing tonal sounds. And this is a different tone that I'm not a music guy. I don't play any instruments. So this is just me being a nerd about listening to music.
Mhm.
But there's sounds that Eddie does on the Sammy years that he doesn't make those sounds, whatever that effect that he uses. It's a different Eddie. And that's what you'd almost have to argue. Do you like? So I think it's fun to enjoy both. It's chocolate and vanilla. Just enjoy both.
Yeah.
People, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot by choosing because or trick you, because I enjoy both. I like chocolate, I like vanilla, and I guess Gary is, I don't know, a little small scoop of strawberry somewhere in there. Have you seen any of the Gary live stuff though that he did with the band?
I am pretty sure
Like on YouTube
that I
or
saw
whatever?
them the one time they came to town when the new
you
album
went to
was
the
out.
show.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw it live, and it was very forgettable.
Oh, geez. It's too bad because Gary's a really great guy. Like he's actually genuinely a nice guy. Like he's a good person. There's no, I can't slander anything about him. He had an impossible role to fill. Like how do you you're kind of a bad fit for Van Halen when people are asking for Sammy back. Like that's the.
Well, I was, to your point about 5150 being so great. They were in '86. I watched some kind of like top 10 1986 where they're on MTV, which I like to go back to glory days things and watch cartoon or like toy commercials from the 70s.
Sure.
And just whatever was on The Price is Right in the 80s and things like that. So I was watching the top 10 countdown on MTV from 1986, and it was Van Halen's coming out with this, and that now here's the follow-up track, and David Lee Roth is showing up with Steve Vai, and they're just trying to upstage each other. And it was pretty entertaining to watch that kind of rivalry play out surrounding a lot of people's favorite bands and hear the trash talk in the media. And you can, as a person consuming those products, say, well, I like this, I like what he did there. And comparing Steve Vai to Eddie Van Halen, that's a very interesting conversation to have, especially surrounding the breakup of a band like that.
Well, no, and I will say this: I like by far David's solo stuff versus Sammy's.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't really, I can't drive 55 is like the only thing I would know by that, and it's whatever. Leave it. Take it or leave it. I'll leave it. I don't really know.
Tricky.
Yeah.
I think this is where it gets tricky. I think this is where people kind of say David's the better frontman for the band because David was a better solo artist in that he's a better rock and roll guy. Like, come on, the Red Rocker. I mean, what kind of nickname is that? Come on.
I know.
But Diamond Dave, even the nickname Diamond Dave is a better nickname.
I think I'll save some of my thoughts when we get into like going track by track through this, where
this is just
it will become more apparent how Sammy Hagar fit into the band a little bit better, even though David Lee Roth is more cartoonish and entertaining, I think.
Yes.
So
he's a character, and some people like that character. He's a frontman. So here's the thing: Sammy's a better singer, David's a better performer, and that's the problem. It's like that's the best of both worlds. That's the whole argument. Is because you got David, who's the look. He's not even that bad of a vocalist. Like I've seen some of the early 2000s stuff. Even when he's starting to decline in the early 2000s, it wasn't like it was horrible. It's not like Vince Neil today, right? Like it was. And I love Molly Crew, but really poor guy. But that being said, like there's something charismatic about David. His the way he talks, the way he just espouses on the mic. He's a goof, but he's a lovable goof. And there's something about him that makes him a great frontman. But again, Sammy's a better vocalist. And again, there's stuff that the Van Halen albums have produced that has made Eddie, like the riffs that Eddie has done. Humans Being is one of the best guitar solos Eddie's ever done from the Twister movie soundtrack. That standalone song. I'll go back on my iPhone or whatever and to where the solo starts, listen to it like 5 times in a row. I just
Is that
love
only
that.
on the soundtrack, or is that on an
Yeah,
album?
then on compilations and stuff. It's not on the studio album.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I don't really know. I'm gonna have to go find that.
Okay, I will give it to you. And I understand. So people, before you add us in the comments, I'm a huge Van Halen fan. So I will say, like, I own all their albums. When David announced that they were reunited, I geeked out. Like, I absolutely geeked out. And
Yeah.
I saw them in 2008 with David, and again in 2012. And when I saw them in 2012, I took my 2 oldest sons. I said, look, I even told them at the time, they were like, what age were they? 13 years ago. So they were in the early teens. I said to him, look, David doesn't sound like the albums anymore. Like, he just doesn't, but you're just there to see Eddie. And that's why I try to impose, like, we're listening to some great rock and roll. And of course, Eddie, and it was Wolfgang at the time for both concerts. Unfortunately, it was Wolfgang. I love Wolfgang, but I haven't seen Anthony live of all the people. Actually, the one concert I did see, funny enough, I saw the one tour. Remember back in the day, it was early 2000s when David and Sammy toured together?
Yeah.
I saw that tour.
Wow. I've never seen Dave live.
Okay, so I've seen Dave live 3 times, but
that's
awesome. Anthony, I saw Michael Anthony. Sorry, Michael Anthony. I said Anthony Hall because that's the actor. I saw Michael Anthony with Sammy because he performed with, not with David. Funny enough, I believe he performed with Sammy at that.
Chickenfoot.
Yeah, with that. Yeah, I never saw Chickenfoot, but when they did the solo, like they did their solo acts together. So Sammy sang Sammy Hagar stuff. Or sorry, Van Hagar stuff, and David sang his stuff, and mixed was, it was kind of an interesting tour because Sammy did his solo stuff plus his Van Hagar stuff with Michael Anthony playing bass and doing background vocals, and David's band did David Lee Roth Van Halen stuff with his solo stuff, like, you know, just like Paradise and things like that. So it's kind of a
Paradise.
Yeah, it's a great song. So, anyways, all that being said, I've seen every Van Halen member live at some point, but a different. Yeah. Anyways, I love the band. I love the music, and they have sold. I don't know their exact number. A better podcast host would have the number ready, but I'm looking at their Wikipedia page with each album. Every album is like diamond, platinum.
This album, 84 is diamond, and I think it's the debut album, and this in 1984 are the top selling albums. But I wanted to back up to the way that people perceive David Lee Roth in the band. I've always equated him to Homer Simpson, where you want to spend an hour, 90 minutes watching him be ridiculous, but to be on tour with that guy and have to deal with him on a daily basis, it just has to be exhausting. I kind of know people like that, and you start to realize that why the band broke up.
It's a very good point. And Eddie and Alex, they are. I've read a couple of the biographies on the band. Very interesting band dynamics in the early days. I haven't listened to or read Alex's brothers book yet. I've heard it's very good. I don't know if you've heard about that biography they did. It's not very long. He just came out with it last year, I think. And apparently he stops when David leaves the band. He doesn't even cover the Sammy years.
Yeah.
It's a big F you to Sammy, which is weird. He said rock and roll ended with David leaving or something like that. I know, it's weird. There's such weird, bro. Like, again, and what's funny is you hear about Eddie just butting heads with Sammy and David to some degree, and I can get butting heads with, like you're saying, with David Lee Roth because of just he's such a clown, and
the egos won't fit in the same arena, you know.
But Sammy does seem much more level-headed. I read his biography too, by the way. It was a great read. He seems like a more level-headed, even-keeled guy, but even him and Eddie. So the common denominator does seem to be Eddie, and I think it was alcohol too, of course. But when you see them or see him live on stage, there's something so infectious about Eddie's smile.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he was a miserable person per se, or I don't think that was all show, like on stage, like I'm just going to smile. I think he just loved music. And I think that was his blood, and everything was just his guitar and music and anything that seemed to kind of get in the way of this mad genius. I think he might not have been the best communicator, maybe, or the best, but when it came to playing guitar, I will say, I don't think there would be another Eddie. There's something about him that was just very special. You know, when he died, I hate it when people get all teary-eyed about celebrities, because who gives a crap about a celebrity to a certain degree, but I can't say that about Eddie because I have thousands of hours I've enjoyed listening to his music, seen him live twice. So it would be disingenuous of me to say that it did not, quote unquote, sadden me that this is gone. Whatever was under his brain would never be produced again. So here we go. I'm ready to talk this album. Of course, if you're listening to this show for the first time, which some people do when they see it, oh, it's about Van Halen. Let's take a listen to this, to these guys. What we do is we take something that's the best of. It could be a favorite. This certainly is top selling album of Van Halen's discography. This is this is a very easy one to pick, especially in David's. If you want to look at the David Lee Roth era, this is the number one selling album of their era. With David Lee Roth, this is probably the most popular album almost in general. Everyone knows the cover with the angel smoking, the baby angel smoking. By the way, that was a controversial cover. So funny. If people are clutching their pearls over the silliest things. So it's a oh, baby with a cigarette. They censored it, eh? Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe I've
Depends on
seen
the country. Some countries, I don't remember which ones, but they covered up the cigarette, the pack of cigarettes.
You know what? I do remember that back in the Sam Goody days, because I'm an old man.
Right.
I remember when vinyl was still on the shelves. And
Right.
I remember seeing the sticker covering up the cigarette. Yeah.
Oh, I hope the baby's okay. I think I saw an Instagram reel. I could be wrong, where the kid who posed for this picture for the artwork, the adult, he did the pose. It was him.
Oh, really?
So what he did was he did the pose. Like everyone knows the artwork, of course. So for the YouTube viewers, I won't waste the audio version too much. But does the pose that you see in the photo, and then it morphs into the adult. It shows him doing the pose. Sorry,
Yeah.
and it morphs into the painting, and it's like that's me. Of course, a lot of the comments were like, "Was that really?" But it did look like him. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I'll see if I can find that and put it in this YouTube clip. If not, we'll just continue. Okay, all right. Yeah. So 1984 actually came out. You know what's funny? If you were to ask me like yesterday, I feel like it's like a Mandela effect. I feel like the album came out. My brain, I always thought it came out in 83. And I thought it was always odd that it was called 84.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'm not the only one listening to this episode where people are like, Ryan, you're an idiot. It came out in 84. That's why it's called 1984. But I feel like it was based on the book 1984. And I'm not sure if it is or not. If it literally just called it 1984 because that's the year it came out. Do you know of any real history on the why it's called 1984 other than that was the year it was released?
I think it's the year it was released. I know they were in studio working on it in 83. So I just read like some Wikipedia shit about the album.
Yeah, it did come out January 9th of 84. Like it came out in 84. I don't know why my brain was like just misremembering. Look, again, I should say we're not a Wikipedia podcast. Obviously, anyone can Google any of this stuff. We're a fandom podcast. And how this works is at the end of the episode, independent of each other, Andy and I are going to select what we feel is the worst song from their best-selling and best loved album of the David Lee Roth era for sure. We're going to pick what we feel independent of each other is the worst song, and we will not reveal our choice as we go track by track until the very end. So even if we, obviously we're going to cover the track, do not give any hints, Andy, as per the rules, that this is your worst pick. Mm-hmm. And by making it a worst pick, it doesn't mean it's a bad song. It just means the producer Ted Templeman has come up to you and said, "Hey, Ryan, Andy, I really like what you guys have done here, but the studio's breathing on our necks. They want 7 songs, not the full 8 songs."
Yeah.
And the reason why I say 7, not 8, because yes, the title, quote unquote, title track 1984, it doesn't count. Do you know why it doesn't count? Do you remember the rules?
An instrumental.
It's an instrumental. Now, everyone has to participate in the song for it to count as a worst pick. So by default, we cannot pick 1984 as the worst song on the album. It has to be everyone participating in the song. So here we go. Well, we're gonna play a little bit of that 1984. Well, we can play the whole thing probably.
1 minute.
Yeah. 1 minute. And I believe it sets the tone for the album. those little like almost like space age kind of sound effects going on in the background there at the very end.
R2D2 shows up at the end.
Well, yeah, this did come out during the Return of the Jedi, I think, in the 83 Return of the Jedi. So what's your thoughts of the kind of the opening motif to this album?
I already mentioned that Dreams, I have a soft spot for that, and I feel like the key changes in this, if you turn up the BPMs to the same tempo as Dreams, that those notes are in there. You can almost hear it as a precursor to that song that would be created years later. There's a couple of things like where it swells. Maybe it's just whatever one section of there, but it's reminiscent of that to me. So I enjoy that, and I feel like I have a general opinion about Eddie's introduction of the synthesizer into the band, and it's divisive, but I think I'm going to save those thoughts for later.
Okay, sure. Okay. I'm all the same. I'm same page as you. This definitely adds this. It's definitely an 80s sound, and that's not a bad thing, but this is definitely early 80s. 83 came out in 84. But that whole, I say sci-fi, but you had it just seemed to be that was a time of movies back then, from The Last Starfighter to Tron, and it was just that was arcade games, Galaga, Space Invaders. Like this was a very 80s kind of synth sound. It's funny because again, I've read these books and I'm a nerd, but what I mean by nerd is I love the band, but every like song and what happened behind the scenes, I'm not sure about, but I understand that David seemed to be not quite on board regarding keyboards. He was the rock and roll guy. That's why a lot of people are David fans, because he really was about like, just give me guitar. I don't want to hear keyboards. That's why Sammy has a lot more keyboard stuff, from Dreams to Mine Oh Mine has like even that keyboard bass. Right Now, of course, is heavy on the keyboards. So but I find that ironic because David Lee Roth, he leaned into it with of course, just like Paradise had a bunch of keyboards. So I don't know what it seems like that was part of the reason why he left the band, as my understanding was creative differences. And I think it was the direction that Eddie felt at the time was he wanted more keyboards in the songs.
Yeah, you got to look at this through the eyes of an artist, like Eddie Van Halen, who has taken the guitar, innovated it and mastered it, and then when you're at the top of your game, this other instrument arrives that offers you so many options at literally at your fingertips, and how to not be excited about that and try and incorporate it. I just feel like he was compelled to explore all those options, where in like the guitar, he was trying to figure out new things to do with something that he had completely figured out, as opposed to synthesizer, where it's almost unlimited.
The spirit of the keyboard compels him.
Right. Something like that.
Well, speaking of keyboard, first single from the album, that's just exactly how it starts. We're watching the music video as we're doing this for our audio listeners. I don't hear any guitar being played, but we see Eddie playing a guitar. Is there actual guitar? I know there is a riff that they do play live, but I'm even listening to it now. Like, is that a synth guitar riff, or is that really guitar that's going in the background with the keyboard?
I think it's way low in the mix, but I think he's doing a palm muted thing, which if you're not a musician, you can just full out strum and let the strings, resonate as long and as loud as they can. But what he's doing there is he's laying the side of his hand on the strings to mute them. So you get more of a chug, 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 chug. And it's called palm muting, and it keeps the guitar quieter and lower and more staccato as opposed to resonating. So I think he's just laying something underneath to round out the sound, but he's letting the keyboards for sure do all the heavy lifting in the beginning of the song.
Yeah, and the title track 1984 is definitely, it's meant to bleed in a little bit into, because we've got the keyboard heavy jump right away. That's the idea. I mean, the radio's never played it this way, but when you listen to this on your LP at the time, that's how you played it. You played that intro, you know the keyboards are coming. And yeah, I would say this was a revolutionary sound for 1984 for a rock and roll bands that came, they did Unchained and all those others, Running with the Devil, these very hard rocking songs. And so for them to come out with a song that has a very synth poppy sound at the beginning, I was too young to know what the chatter was at the time. There was no message boards or Reddit in 1984, but I'd be curious and wondering if fans who are, this is their 6th studio album, so they're deep in Van Halen fandom at this time. I wonder what teenager, some 17-year-old punk listens to this, goes, what are they doing? Do you think this album was divisive with Van Halen fans? Made the same way Metallica with the original, with the first albums, they'd come out with Enter Sandman. I know there was scuttlebutt about that at the time because I was a teenager then. Do you think there was that same kind of divisiveness with fans at this time?
100%. And I was equating it to when Bob Dylan went electric. But everybody wanted Dylan to be the troubadour, acoustic, poet guy. And when he went full electric, I don't know if you saw the movie, a lot of people had a problem with it. And a lot of people thought it wasn't the same. It's just not the same anymore. And I think that a lot of people felt that way about this album because they start the album out like this. And this was an opinion I was going to save, but since we're right here with it, if they had selected a different song, maybe when we get to, I'll say what I thought.
Sure.
The first track on this album should have been. If you put this atmospheric 1984 keyboard thing at the beginning of side B, the B, in the middle of the album, and you don't bash people over the head with it. You don't come out with Jump and say, well, the sound is completely, it's just a different band now, guys. It's going to be keyboards and nothing but keyboards. I think a lot of people felt like that. Was this the first single that they came out with too?
Yeah. So this is essentially track 1 and first single that dropped.
Yeah. And it's a monster hit, but I feel like huge. Everybody that loved the first 4 or 5 albums before this felt like these two, the way opening the album like this was too much of a departure. I think a lot of people have strong opinions about Jump specifically, but to me, it's classic. Some songs wear out their welcome, and I don't really think I've heard Jump a million times, and it just always kind of puts you in a good mood. If you're having a bad day, put on Jump, and you'll probably feel a little bit better about things. But that's just me, though.
Oh, it's a fun song, but you're right. If you were to play this song to someone who's never heard of Van Halen before or anything from them, and say, "Hey, I got a new band for you. I want you to check out here's a song for them." You're like, "Okay, this is cool," and then we'll get to other songs on this album where, this is the outlier. There's no other. Well, there's one other song. There's of the other 7 remaining. There's only one other song that might fit with this one on an album, but the other ones are pretty much now sort of standard Van Halen. So this is a bit of an outlier. So is that good or is that bad? Will that make my worst pick? I don't know. Stand by, folks. Though. I mean, I can't help but like the song. This is sort of their Enter Sandman. I keep using Metallica because it's a band that everyone knows whether you like them or not. Enter Sandman is one of my least listened to Metallica songs. They're one of my favorite bands of all time, top 5. I've seen them live 6 times, 7 times. You include I did their back-to-back last tour, their two-night show. So I've seen them live 7 times, and I really do enjoy them. I don't care that they're people that don't like them. I'm a fan. I don't care. I enjoy them. I hate Enter Sandman, because it's played so much. Now, when they play it live, and I'm at the show, great. I'll listen to it and have a good time, but I'll never, ever, ever, ever. It's never on my phone. It's skipped. I don't listen to it, but that's how I feel with Jump.
they're closing their tour with it right now. My buddies just went and saw them this week, and that's what they're ending with is Enter Sandman.
Oh, that's a great time to walk out. Perfect. Get to the car before. Sorry, that's fantastic. So I mean, Jump, I feel the same way. But like I said, I saw Van Halen with David Lee Roth in 08 and 2012. Man, when to play was fun. It's nostalgic. It's fun. The 08 show, David Lee Roth was walking around with a freaking huge overinflated microphone that he used for a penis. It was his it was bigger than he was. He was walking around with it. I got some old grainy potato footage of it. I'll send it to you. It's horrible. It's crazy how much phones have come along since 08.
Yeah.
It's like this grainy potato footage of that show. But I'll send you a link later so you can see what I'm talking about.
What a fucking hack. What a hack bit.
He's crazy though. He's crazy. That is not the idea. Okay. So we all know the song. I won't bore everyone with it. Like, yeah, if you don't know Jump, I don't even know why you're listening to this episode. But as per what we do on the show, I like to showcase when applicable the solos that come with each song, no matter the band. So here we go.
In a song where people are upset about how much keyboards are in it, you have to say, well, he's gonna serve you up the guitar part that you're
right.
wishing would be in the song. Yeah.
And it's coming. And it's a good one. Jump! Now, before we get into the keyboard solo, which is great, when I watching this music video with you, and I haven't seen it in a while, but I know it very well, of course. But just seeing Eddie smile like that, like breaks your heart a little bit, you know?
Oh yeah, I felt the same way. I was just like, God damn, I miss him, especially that boyish charm. I don't know how old he is in this, but he looks like he's
29,
19.
Yeah, he's
29. Yeah, he looks 19 though.
Well, you think about how much they've accomplished, how much they accomplished at that young age. This is their sixth album. They haven't hit 30 yet. The older I get, I start realizing how young some of our favorite artists were. You know, when they did albums. Again, Metallica, they were 18 when they did Kill 'Em All.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts. That got recorded right near here too, where I live.
80. Boy, people are gonna. I think it was 82 was entered. Sorry, it was Kill 'Em All was 82.
Kill 'Em All. Yeah.
Yeah. That is weird. That was only 2 years before this. That is wow. That keyboard solo it's pretty pimping, right? In the sense of like what other bands were doing that. I know Deep Purple were big on their solos, but I don't think the energy level is ever matched. I don't think another rock roll band who did keyboards, always a more gloomy and moody keyboard sounds, if that makes sense, than that kind of like REO Speedwagon, maybe. I don't know, like what band was doing solos like that on the keyboard at that kind of pace?
That's a good point. Typically, you'll see maybe a keyboard player that has he's got like this style, like a traditional organ with a synth, with a piano, and they're going back and forth and playing one part over here. You know, you see it with the Dead, you see it with Toto, some of these other bands that have maybe like more accomplished keyboard players. And here's Eddie, who's trying to just do something different. He's trying to master a new instrument, basically. And for that solo, especially juxtaposed against the bare bones version of the primary riff of the keys part, it's like any hack could probably figure that keyboard part, the keyboards to jump the main riff out on a Casio if they wanted to, right? But that solo is something else. Did I read that? Did he actually play that, or did he not play that? I think that might be.
That's him in the
I'm not
studio.
sure that
No, that's him.
It is okay.
Oh yeah.
I I'm impressed by it, but
Yeah, I think he does all of his stuff first on the piano. Again, I'm not quite the nerd, but I believe he does the majority of his songwriting via the piano first.
that tracks, because I know a lot of people that are very versatile and they can play everything. And it
That's
all
him.
goes
He
back to the
plays
fact that they learned on keys. Keys translates to almost every other instrument. So you
That's
have
right.
this framework of how notes and musicianship works when you study piano. So anybody that's thinking about getting into music, just start with keyboards and you're going to end up being able to play everything if you stick with it long enough. But
I believe that's what their dad did. I think he was a piano player, if I remember correctly. And so the idea was that Eddie literally lived under the piano. So he played piano first, if I remember correctly. So he was literally he's actually a very well, you can see he's an accomplished piano player first. But I believe Eddie also plays everything, drums included. He does play everything. In fact, there's tracks out there of him plays bass, everything. Like he doesn't need the band that he has, but he has the band that he has. He's just that good. He's not a bad singer.
Yeah, he sings a lot of these backups on here.
Yeah, that's right. So for backing vocals, of course, it's Michael, which is we love his high vocal work that he does. Great stuff. Love it. Kicks back in. Okay. Oh, I was gonna say, of course, David, when you watch this video, him doing his drop kicks, roundhouses, splits, and stuff. That's what makes him like the Red Rocker ain't doing that stuff. You know, this is the showman stuff. He's a showman.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now we've got that synth pop out of the way. Van Halen's like, don't worry, guys. We know how our bread was buttered in the early days. We understand. We get it. Don't worry. Unless you're worried as you listen to this album for the first time, this song comes on. And I always tease like what song I would never pick as my worst. There's just no way that anyone in the right of mind would ever pick Panama as their worst pick on an album, on this album, any album. It's impossible. You couldn't be a Van Halen fan. I could even, no, I'm not saying Jump is a pick of mine. I'm not saying, but I could see people, purists or music files saying, oh, blah, blah, the keyboard. Blah. I get it. I can almost see the argument for Jump, overplayed, whatever it might be. But Panama has that riff at the beginning that you cannot tire. How do you tire of the drum and the bass and the whole way that song kicks off? It's just a song that never deteriorates over time. What do you think?
I agree. I would put it in maybe top 5 Van Halen songs ever.
Sure.
Easily one of the best on this album. That little pick through the pre-chorus with the harmonics that he picks through right before the where it's just the guitar, everything drops out and he picks that out and then it kicks into the chorus. Iconic, amazing. And we heard a little bit in, I think it was the solo of Jump, how he'll play off the beat. Like a lot of people, it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you fit the notes into the 4 count, and he'll just like lean off of it or like delay it just enough so that it makes it special, and it goes back. It's his touch, it's his feel. I've heard, what the hell's his name from Damn Yankees?
Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent, thank you. Said that he was touring with Van Halen, and they were at backstage, and Eddie's guitar was sitting there, and he looks at it like it's Excalibur. He's like, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to sound like Eddie. And you pick it up and you play it, and it just sounds like you playing the guitar. There's nothing special about the guitar. It's the guy that's playing it, and his touch and what he does with it is what's amazing. You can walk up and try and do that. He's just a magician. It's on full display with Panama here.
Absolutely. Well said. I've said this before about you've seen this, of course, on YouTube or Instagram Reels, whatever. People playing, my favorite was always the hot chicks that are busty playing guitar. Like, you've seen those? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
I follow a couple of them, but
yeah, sure.
One of them, she ended up touring with Machine Gun Kelly because she was so popular on Instagram.
Sure. Now, I'm not begrudging their skills, but I'm going to say something. What I'm getting at here is, look, there's signs. Look, I get it. They're pretty. No shame in that. I wish I was pretty. I wish that people might watch my show, but
all right. He's fishing for compliments. Everybody. You're a beautiful man.
I need to show more cleavage, I guess. That's the problem. But what I'm getting at is, and they'll cover stuff like Van Halen, Motley Crue, Black Sabbath, whatever it is, and they do a great job. And this goes for guys too, of course, guys that are covering stuff. What I'm getting at is, it's one thing to cover and show, because people can almost say, look, I can do what Eddie did. Yeah, but you didn't compose. And that's the difference. Is Eddie Van Halen isn't just, in my opinion, the greatest guitarist that I've ever loved. It's not about that. People argue speed or this. I'm not a music guy, I admit, but he makes his guitar. So, like I said, with Humans Being there, or 5150, I feel something about it. There's something that his guitar makes me feel. I don't hear Eddie singing. I just hear Eddie's playing. That's the key. So it's one thing to say, oh, well, I can play Eddie Van Halen's music. Okay, great. You're very good at playing the guitar. That's fantastic. But you didn't compose the piece.
Right. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's like I said, just because you can play what you're hearing, like I said before, the ways that he composes it and delays, instead of like playing on the beat, that makes it sound so unique. That like he had to write that for you to even think to copy it. They talk about it with athletics, like people breaking records and things like that. It's like, oh, we never thought that somebody could run that fast until somebody did it. And then suddenly a lot of people are like learning how to do it. And, then somebody breaks that record.
That's what Tony Hawk said, actually. Tony Hawk talks very plainly about that. And he doesn't, where he says, like, once I did something, it was like, oh, people, like, he didn't say that necessarily about himself, but it's been said about Tony Hawk. It's like, Tony Hawk did things that no one else ever did before. People are like, oh, we can do this? We get to do this? Yeah, we get to do this with our skateboard. Yeah, you get to do this with your skateboard. Yeah. That's what Eddie did with the guitar. Yeah.
He's the Tony Hawk of guitar.
He's the Tony Hawk of guitarists. Yeah. Now, sorry, we got the music video. We got David Lee Roth doing some sort of Tai Chi samurai, whatever. I don't know what kind of culture he's appropriating here. I'm not sure, but it's just funny. Like, let Eddie play the solo, David. You don't have to be a part of the solo visual experience.
Dave. Whatever. I see what he's doing, and all I can think is going through his head is, "Are you not entertained?" Like, what else do you want? I mean, he's part clown, part sex symbol, part rock star. It's all entertaining. It's endlessly entertaining.
And let's not sleep on, of course, Michael's bass line throughout that solo too,
and the JD bass.
That's something my brother and I, Jason, would always make fun of Michael in these videos. The way he pounds, he hits the bass. It's not really playing it. The way you ever see Michael, how he punches the bass when he plays?
Yeah,
he'll just punch it. Yeah, it always get a kick out of that.
I'm a bass player. I know what that does. It's not much.
Oh, okay.
If anything, it just kind of makes the note resonate longer, but it doesn't do any. It's not playing in the instrument. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so now the next one. Top Jimmy.
Hey, this is more like traditional, what you would expect.
And this is classic Eddie with what he does. This with Mean Streets is a great example. It's my probably that's one reason why I love Fair Warning so much is Mean Street. Is he plays this intro to the song that isn't the song. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna play the guitar for you a little bit. That's what Eddie's so good at. He does it. He does that's Eddie. He does it through multiple songs, of course. I'm not saying this anything that people that are Van Halen fans know this, of course. But that's what we love about Eddie. He'll play a piece before the music, before the song starts. So that's what he's doing here. He's like, oh,
imagine this is track one. Instead of the weird R2D2 keyboard shit, you get this. Then you'd be like instantly happy, as opposed to stroking your chin, going, I don't know about what he's doing here, what I feel about this album. If they just structured this album a little bit differently, it probably would have gone on to all the phenomenal success that it already has gone on to anyway. But I feel like it would have been maybe a stronger front to back album, more satisfying album, maybe is what I'm trying to say. Digestible to a critic.
Yeah, maybe if they ended with Jump, that would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah.
No. I should have said too, Panama was their third single, by the way. It was not their second, despite a lot of people thinking it was actually their third single. Without looking, do you know what their second single was without looking?
I already looked, so I'm not going to say.
Okay, that's fine. I'd forgotten. Every time I see it on Wikipedia when we get to the song, I often forget it was a single, let alone that it was the second single, which we'll talk about when we get there. Okay, so we go with this. Yeah. Now, who was doing that back then?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely nobody. People didn't even know how to comprehend it. It's like Hendrix, reincarnated. He's reinventing the instrument, basically.
It's so psychedelic and cool. And then, the rock song kicks in, which is a great rock song. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, oh, yeah, but I really enjoyed that craziness that Eddie was giving us. So here's the rock song now kicks in.
Some friends of mine just the other night went to hear this cool cat blow. They said he sang so good that the roof fell in and he didn't even stop the show. They don't remember the place, but they remember the face, and now everybody wanna go. Woo! Top Jimmy clubs, Top Jimmy swings. He's got the love. Woo! Top Jimmy, he's the king.
Now, Top Jimmy, I think, was a real person. A better podcaster would have that. But if you want to go find out who he was, but he was a member of some band. I think it was an actual artist. He was a recording artist. Top Jimmy or Jimmy and the So-and-Sos or whatever. So it's referring to a real singer, yeah.
Top Jimmy, woo, sing it, baby.
Again, guitar solos back then, they didn't sound like this. It was as Eddie played them. I mean, it's not conventional. I don't know. I'm not a music guy, so I don't know what you call that, but it doesn't have a conventional feel to it.
Right. And what I was hearing in there during the verse, Dave will sing something and then he'll throw in that busy, like flourish part, which sounds like something that Buckethead heard and go, oh, I'm just going to make every song sound like that. But it's way down in the mix. It's kind of subtle. And then he gets to this solo that feels like Drunken Master. We all know that he had an alcohol problem, and I feel like a lot of his writing was done into a tape recorder late at night after he just finished a bottle of Jack, and it almost sounds like he's playing drunk, and then he just took that recording and plussed it up like in the studio when he was sober, because it sounds like he's like it sounds like you're just like drunk staggering out of a bar. It's on some of those parts, which is unique. It's his own thing. It's his own style. But I never really thought about that. Maybe how, because he did used to say that he like alcohol was his creative juices. Like he felt like he was dependent on it. He couldn't write without it. And when you listen to that solo, it does sound like a drunk guy's playing the guitar.
So Top Jimmy was a tribute to James Paul Konsek. He was the lead singer for the band Top Jimmy and the Rhythm Pigs.
Okay. Yeah. People find inspiration there. I guess Jump was based on the news story that DLR saw about a guy that was trying to decide if he should jump off a building and kill himself. Go ahead and jump.
Go ahead and jump. Might as well jump.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's interesting that it was off of Skyscraper, which is the name of the album from his second solo album, I think.
Right.
Yeah, Skyscraper. Yeah. All right. Drop Dead Legs is the next track, and it ends side one. Are you a legs guy? Do you like legs on the woman?
Yeah, definitely.
The gams. Yeah. I'll tell you, a nice set of gams is a wonderful thing to behold, because the opposite, a bad set of gams is not.
Yeah. It's probably my affection for it goes back to almost every Van Halen video I've ever seen on MTV. California Girls or
let's Dave Lee Roth and California Girls. As a young 12-year-old, it was okay. All right. Drop Dead Legs. Here we go. Great, boy, that's such a great bluesy, dirty, and the way David says, dum, 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 it's just such a great, hard blues song.
Yeah. And after all this like hyper activity from Jump through Panama, through Top Jimmy, it breaks up. It gives you a chance to catch your breath. I could see ending a side A with this. It just, that's kind of a lost art, right? By the way people lay out their albums now, there's no side A, side B anymore. I mean,
missed that.
It's all just singles really now. But this is kind of something that feels like it should possibly be the last song out on the album to me. It could be. It's kind of tucking you into bed with this riff anyway.
No, you're right. That would be an interesting one to switch. Put House of Pain ending side one. And Drop Dead Legs ending side two. I can almost see that for sure.
Yeah. That's a lot of my takeaway from re-listening to this album is the way that I would present it to somebody that's never heard it before. And we don't usually get to the end of the song, but were you going to play the outro?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
So this song specifically.
Yeah, this song. So the quote unquote guitar solo starts at 2:20, but that's the rest of the song.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Because it turns into a complete, kind of the opposite of the one right before. Was it Top Jimmy? where it kind of starts with that real busy thing and then turns into a more straightforward song. This starts straightforward and turns into real busy. The best part, they save the best for last on
They
this
do.
track.
And that's why I actually will go with you here, Andy. And I think you heard it here, folks. Drop Dead Legs should have been the closer to the album because the way the song closes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love the way it outros, and I love Alex. He loves the hi-hat or whatever they're hitting there. Alex is so good at cymbal crashing or hitting because not every drummer can do it, but Alex has always been able to do it where it doesn't sound like it's drowning out the drums, because I'm not a big fan of the crashing sound, but he's always able to do it. Think about like Pound Cake, where he just smashes the cymbals in Pound Cake, but it sounds right when he does it. And I love the way he just supports his brother that throughout that solo. It's such a great outro of a song, and it keeps going, folks. So if you haven't heard this in a while, or go listen to this song or this album completion is what I always say, but it goes on for like another minute. It's a great outro.
Yeah, and it's the whole album's only 33 minutes.
33 minutes.
It's not going to take up a lot of your day, so go revisit it.
Yeah, you can listen to the album 3 times by the time this episode is over.
Right.
All right. So now we flip the side over, and this is a well-placed song for side 2, because side 1 is a very strong side. Like, okay, well, what do we put on the first track for side 2, says the brothers. Well, let's start off with Alex. That intro is hard to beat.
Yeah, the drums wise, guitar wise, I think that is a benchmark that people strive to be able to even ape it, let alone compose it. Like you were saying, who does this, and right into that hyper bluesy breakdown. It's just legendary, arguably. We were talking to Carl from WATP. Somebody said, "What's the greatest rock and roll song of all time?" Like, that's an answerable question. And Carl's answer was this song.
Yeah.
For it to be buried on this album is wild, because it's such a banger. It's an epic song.
It is, and it's equally an epic music video. This okay, look, folks, if you this is actually a fun one to watch, like generation, what is it, Y and Z people.
Oh yeah, kids react to
well,
teacher.
Yeah, well, even like a 21-year-old today, right, reacting to this song, because now it's funny, when I watched this as a kid, it made perfect sense in *84. Of course, we have a teacher in a bikini.
I know, yeah. I threw my pants out the window when I saw it.
Were you ever hot for a teacher? There you go. Have you ever been hot for a teacher?
Not one of my teachers. I do remember specifically there being a teacher in high school that was hands down, the hot teacher, that she was a health ed teacher. I think she did end up like sleeping with one of the students, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I think everybody has one, right? Am I wrong?
I did. I will say, I'll say her name. It's probably her maiden name. I don't care. Well, actually, maybe I shouldn't. She was I was in grade 12, or as you say in the States, 12th grade or senior year.
Mhm.
And it was math. It was intro to math because I'm dumb. And she wasn't quite a full-time student, or sorry, a full-time teacher, but she was what they call a student teacher, but she was done at her university. I think she was probably 23. I'm 16, so it's like that really crazy, like she's an adult, she's a full-grown adult, sure. But she was, I was literally hot for, like, it was an absolute joy to sit and look at her for an hour. Absolutely. Yeah. She knew it. I think she knew it.
Sure. She must have. But I think a lot. Yeah. I wished that I was in the class that this other teacher, was teaching. And I think it's a very common story.
So after that great intro of the drums, the guitar, yeah, you're right. Eddie does this like picking, or what, just slows it right down. And of course, David with his classic, speaking for the children's minds,
Oh, wow, man. Wait a second, man. What do you think the teacher's going to look like this year?
Now, you're listening to this for the first time. I did stop it for a reason, because it's like, we had that great intro. And you think, how could it get more rock than what we just heard? They just turned it up to 11 when everyone comes in playing full throttle bass, drums, and guitar right now. But then my homework was never quite like this. This song makes no apologies. Speaking of all apologies, we'll plug your podcast at the end. But it's no apologies whatsoever. They are young men, they're in love with their teachers. Just the way it goes. They're hot. Now the teacher isn't hot for them. Be clear, folks. The boys who are 12, 13-year-old boys, they're absolutely crushing on their teacher. It's all legit. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Dave directed this video too. I read.
Sure, I'm sure he had a casting couch too, probably.
Yeah, right. He cast all the teachers and he choreographed this dance sequence. But,
the dance sequence. Yeah, I mean,
you're right. That's why I like this era. Growing up in this time where it seems like everybody has to temper men have to temper the fact that they're attracted to women. And this is just kind of wearing it, putting it on Front Street. It's like, we all like straight guys like hot women. It's not a secret.
Clock is slow.
Yeah, we all felt that. I feel that at work every day. I feel like the clock is slow. Because
there you go. Everybody that was bitching about too much synthesizer on the album, you get a double wide guitar solo that is unmatched, basically.
Oh, don't forget. Don't worry. The synth is coming back. Don't you worry. But you're right. We haven't listened to anything. This is why Jump is such a deceiving first song, because so far we haven't heard it again.
Mm-hmm.
We're song 6 now.
I don't feel tardy.
Oh, he's right. I don't feel tardy. Is that what he says?
Yeah, like late for school. Tardy.
Yeah, but that's a weird. That's a weird thing to say because he feels like the class is dragging. I always used to think growing up that he says, I don't feel it turning. Maybe the clock's not turning because he talked about the clock slow. Isn't that funny?
I could see, I could see how you would put that together that way.
Because why would he mention about being late when school's almost over? It's a weird place to put that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a narrative. I think it's
no. We got to break down these lyrics. This is why we're here. I love how we haven't really mentioned the lyrics of these songs. I don't think Van Halen songs are a lyrical breakdown.
Oh yeah, what's the hidden message behind "Drop Dead Legs"?
I think it's pretty clear. I think it ties into Hot for Teacher. Yeah. So, speaking of the synths, don't worry, synth lovers. Don't worry. It comes back. Dream another dream. This dream is this is the precursor to all that Sammy Hagar stuff. This was them definitely saying, David, I know you don't like the synth stuff. Don't worry, we're gonna have Sammy singing later, and we'll definitely reinvestigate these sounds with Sammy. That's this song. Also, Miami Vice called. They want their song back. What's your thought? What's your overall thoughts with that intro to I'll Wait?
I have, as a child that grew up in the 80s, I have an affection for what's very popular now thanks to Stranger Things. There's a band called Laserhawk that is all like synth wave, and that's like everything that reminds me of when I was a kid in the 80s, and okay. I love this song. I won't. Oh yeah,
you're allowed to
say about it. This just like strikes that chord of quintessential 80s. This keys riff. Yeah,
absolutely. The synth bass is being played by Michael Anthony. There's a synth bass being played. That's Michael Anthony. Yeah.
So he's playing what?
You got me captured. I'm under your spell. I guess I'll never learn. I am your picture. Yes, I know it well. Another page is turned. Are you for real? It's so hard to tell from just a magazine. Yeah, you just smile and the picture sells. Look what that does to me. I till your love goes down. I'm coming straight for your heart. No way you can stop me now. As fine as you are.
I love that. Are you real? It's so hard to tell. A picture from a magazine. That's boy. If 80s lyrics had a lyric, it's the pictures from a magazine lyrics. Now, is that? Are you real? It's hard to tell. Are you AI on Instagram? I don't.
Yeah, I like songs like that. As a guy growing up that didn't get a lot of girls, like hearing guys like Bob Seger is what my favorite. These guys that lovelorn. Go listen to some of these big Bob, like Main Street and Night Moves, where
I love Night
Bob
Moves.
Seger just comes off like a complete creep and a loser. I love songs that speak to me as a creepy loser.
Oh, stop it. I love how Andy's like, I'll wait for that loser boyfriend to dump you, and I'll be here waiting for you. Yeah. Alex, that's what I mean by the Miami Vice drums. That was very
Yeah.
the sound. That was
Yeah.
very, yeah.
It just, it's a vibe, probably Beverly Hills Cop was out
Oh,
in
yeah, that's right.
theaters,
Right,
and
yeah.
Axel F was scratching this itch. It sounds like it should be on the soundtrack for a Stallone movie or something like that.
Yeah.
It's that intro to the solo. That's like a total 80s, like loading up for an action sequence kind of thing. But this is definitely out of place on the album in a good way. I feel like it's in the right slot on the album, but it's unlike anything else on the album, really.
It does have a standout feel to it as well. And if you can believe it, this was the second single. No matter how many
Right.
times I remember, I forget that this was an actual single. It's the second one. So they did jump and they're like, hey, remember that synth sound that you kids loved? Well, we got another one for you. So I think in some ways they're really doubling down on the synth.
Yeah, a lot of people, Dave, and you mentioned the producer, what was his name?
Ed Templeton.
Yeah.
Templeman.
A lot of people were fighting Eddie about him insisting on including so much of the synth, and then he proved everybody, all the detractors, wrong by making these songs giant hits. And I guess possibly based on the strength of Jump, they said, well, if you like that, you're going to like this. So they kept going with it, as opposed to some of these other rockers that maybe traditional fans would have preferred, but they couldn't argue with the numbers. Like it was just, these were monster hits.
Yeah, because now they're probably getting a bit of a female fan base. Again, that's what Black did for Metallica. They got a huge female fan base with Nothing Else Matters, right?
Okay.
So every time I go to Metallica, I bless the girlfriends and the wives that come with their guy friends, but or with the guys, because when Nothing Else Matters comes on, that's when all the girls get so excited. I'm like,
oh yeah,
please.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it's butts in the seat, it's money in their pocket. I'm not begrudging Metallica for this. It's actually a great song. It's just, but I actually watch the faces of they're suffering through Battery and Four Horsemen. Then all of a sudden, Nothing Else Matters comes on.
Right.
Like,
oh, yeah, I remember when we made out to this on our second date. Yeah. Okay.
So I'll Wait is Van Halen's Nothing Else Matters for this. They released kind of a ballady type song. It's the only one on the album that's sort of like this. And they were never really known for ballads. This is probably that's what I mean. This was like, hey, Sammy, we're waiting for you because David doesn't do ballads. And, but boy, Sammy sure does.
I think Dave's did a really good job with this, though. And you're right that maybe this isn't his cup of tea, and I feel like Jump was them marrying the conflict that they were having over the production of this album into something that they could both feel proud of. Eddie's insisting on having these keys in there, and it kind of Dave, I think I read something like Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers had to come in and help him structure Jump out. But you still get like a lot of Dave personality, where we're going to hear, I think it might even be the next song, where it feels like the song is so aggressive. Well, I guess we could talk about it when we get there, but I feel like Dave didn't know what to do with it. And there's some of these other songs where he's outclassed by the musicianship and he just doesn't have the range. Like Dave has a tool belt. He has things that in his arsenal that he can pull off, especially when he's not on stage wearing all like the glammy, like the goggles and the tight pants and doing a karate kick. None of that's on an album, right? So there's only so much he can do. And meanwhile, Dave's got the tool belt. Eddie's got a tool shed. He could do anything that you want. And he's trying to make a masterpiece, and David Lee Roth is like, well, I could go skibbity boppa doo doo. Is that good? And it's like, well, okay, like we'll make it work. So bringing in Sammy Hagar was probably like when they made 5150, Eddie was probably over the moon to have somebody that could kind of keep up with him as a musicianship wise.
boy, that riff that Eddie does here is such a. I think this song might be a forgotten gem in their catalog.
That's what, when I was re-listening to it, I thought the same thing. I was like, this is a sleeper banger. If this was track 1, nobody would have any complaints. This is, if you're sick of fucking all the other hits that are beaten into the ground, just know that Girl Gone Bad is there waiting for you to remind you how awesome Van Halen was. But to my point, when Dave comes in there, this is just these riffs and like the tempo is, it's grabbing you by the throat. And then I just feel like Dave doesn't know what to do with it. He's outclassed in the song here.
You know, this is okay. I hear what you're saying. I don't totally agree. I should say I totally agree in that. I think that's what I mean about Sammy, and in that Sammy's a better musician.
Yeah,
he plays guitar, he composes music, and I think he pushed or allowed Eddie to compose thicker, more complicated riffs. If you go listen to Seventh Seal, if you haven't heard that one in a while, go listen to that song. You can't do Seventh Seal with David.
Okay, good point.
Like, yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying, boy, this is tough. I think David's a better frontman for rock and roll, but Sammy broke or allowed Eddie to be full on Eddie, melodic riffs, complications, solos, keyboards. The playground, talk about the playground, the tools. I think Sammy said, hey, whatever you want, let's do it. And he could sing the high vocals, all that. Like, it's tough, man. I would actually have a tough time. Like, you could only listen to one catalog over the other for the rest of your life. I would have a hard time saying goodbye to some.
Yeah, you couldn't. I wouldn't know how to do that.
I wouldn't know how to do it either, and that's a whole other discussion for another day. Thankfully, we can do both, but both make me feel differently for different reasons. I think at the end of the day, I feel more spiritual listening to Sammy and more headbanging listening to David. So it's a question of what do you want to, what are you in the mood for? Like, Dreams is such a killer song. Like, you'll never get that with David, but it's such a beautiful composition. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, you're right. It's the difference between feeling it in your heart and feeling it in your groin.
Yeah, there you go. Sure. Yeah. Maybe the older I get, I have more heart, less groin. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, this might be, boy, this is a conversation like of the non-singles, this or Drop Dead Legs, which is your, I actually don't answer that. We're eliminating it almost by, which is our quote unquote worst picks. We got to be careful. But those two are like, those are two songs where people don't talk enough about, you know, when you think of this album. Like, go listen to Girl Gone Bad. It's an argument for maybe the best song on the album still. Like, it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Yeah, dude, best bass line on the album.
Yeah,
like, that's something you don't get from Michael Anthony, is a fucking ripping bass line like what he just did there. Well,
yeah, that's a great.
There's nowhere else on the album, so he's tearing it up. Yeah, this is like AC/DC's "Who Made Who." Everybody's sick to death of Thunderstruck. put it as go listen to Who Made Who. It's just Thunderstruck all over again. You're just not sick of it. And
It is weird how that is. I don't know why that is. I don't listen to Thunderstruck anymore at all. But again, if I see them live, I will. But
right.
I have no need to put it on. Yeah.
But Thunderstruck is also the Hot for Teacher of AC/DC. It's like that guitar riff that everybody wants to say that they're able to play.
You're right. I agree. But you know what's funny with Thunderstruck? Here, welcome to our AC/DC podcast. Is the great intro. What a buildup of a song, but it kind of peters out as it goes on.
It just does the same thing for 3 minutes straight, or it drops out and you're not hearing anything, and then it goes back to the same. But it doesn't make the riff any less awesome. It's just played to death.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, hopefully this podcast hasn't been a house of pain for our listeners, but here we are with the final track on the album, House of Pain. Such an odd closer.
Yeah. I have to reiterate that I feel like Drop Dead Legs should have been the closer on this. This is more when we're talking about side A's and side B's. This
should
like
close
to be the beginning of side B,
or the closer to side A. This switch Drop Dead with this.
Yeah. That would be a good way to rework it. Even though I want to rework the whole introduction of the album too.
Right.
But yeah, this isn't the best close. It's not a bad song, but Drop Dead was like, I keep trying to push up my glasses. Going like this and there's nothing there. But organically Drop Dead Legs feels like the closer, and this feels like a filler. Not filler, but something in the middle.
This is definitely a callback to their earlier sound for sure. This is a song that could have been on Fair Warning, I think, very easily enough. Okay. In fact, I could pick a song out of that worst pick. I won't reveal it because I ever do that album, but I could put this one on there for sure. This one fits. It's a great song. It's a wicked song, but it almost doesn't fit the sound of the album. It's actually a very, very good song. It's just an odd closer, but it's such a great kick-ass. Maybe they want you to leave on a literal high note, like you're leaving this album already. Come back and listen to Jump. Maybe that's what they wanted you to do. Because this leaves on a literal like rock and roll power outro.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's a great one. I think it's a forgotten track, similar to Girl Gone Bad. I can't get over how much I really enjoyed Girl Gone Bad. But yeah, I think you're right. I have opinions about the way albums are introduced and structured.
Sure.
I've gone on and on another show about Men at Work's Business as Usual being something that I find very satisfying as far as like track for track and the way that the album is presented to you, being one of my all-time favorite albums. So when I think about the kind of song structure of these tracks that they're giving us, well, basically they're all good. I think that they play better. They could play better than the way that they're presented to you on the album.
No, it's interesting. I never even considered that to be our discussion. One of our discussion points today was the track order. I agree. It's a discombobulated track order on an incredible album. Side note, one album that comes to mind that has the perfect track order is Appetite for Destruction.
Good point. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about Appetite when I was thinking about Drop Dead Legs, specifically for Rocket Queen, how Rocket Queen turns into a completely different song at the end, arguably a better song at the end. And I think Drop Dead Legs does the same thing.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Well, here we go, folks. This is what everyone's been waiting for. If you skip to the end just to hear our answers, shame on you. But here we go. I'll go first because people don't care about me as much as they care about you as the guest. I am looking forward to hearing your answer and as to why, because do you think you have mine picked? Do you think you know what I'm about to say? Do you have a guess?
I have a guess, but I want you to say first. I'll tell you if I thought it was what you
fair enough. Say. So, because you gave a lot of accolades to the song, a lot more than I was anticipating. So I was very careful not to, I would say, argue against what you had to say, because there's still your opinions. I want to hear what you have to say, but I didn't want to give away my answer when you're like, holy crap, he really likes this song. I can't.
Now I know what it is.
Yeah. I was like, holy crap, he's going to hate my answer because I'll wait. When this album came out, maybe this is part of it. Even when this album came out, so I was listening to this album as a kid all the time. Like I said, my Fisher Price radio. I'm a young kid riding my bike, my BMX bike.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had no time for this song.
Yeah.
So as a young boy, I'm like, I'll wait. Who am I waiting for? I'll wait for the song to be over. You know, like fast forward. It's just hearing it again in 2025. And I love the 80s, but it's so, I don't know, we had Hot for Teacher, then after this we have Girl Gone Bad.
Mm-hmm.
It tells me, like, it's just so out of place, and I still can't believe they released this. Eddie, I love you, rest in peace, buddy, but he must have just loved the synth work that he did on the song, because to make this their second single, it must have been a way just to get a female fan base in, because I'm sure that's what it did, which makes more. Look, you just doubled your sales, right? You got people buying, because now you have 12-year-old boys buying Jump. Now you got 12-year-old girls buying I'll Wait as a single. Because back in the day, people would buy singles, right? So, I don't like the way it's sung. I don't like the way he sings the song. I don't like the chorus. I just feel like it's kind of a boring song, and it's just it's weird. It has never grown on me. I may never after this episode, I may never listen to the song ever again. I'll die in hopefully 25 30 years, but I'll listen to every other song on this album easily again. It's just a tough one. So again, I love that you love it, don't get me wrong, and you're probably not alone, but not only was it the worst song on the album for me, it's easily one I'll never listen to again. So this was an easy pick for me. But even before I even started thinking about what song, I knew right away what song was going to be. Nothing could change my mind. So I'm curious, what could possibly be your worst pick? This is going to be weird. Okay.
Well,
I have a feeling. So you were right about what you thought I was going to say. You thought
no.
I was going to pick out. Oh, what was your original?
I thought you were going to pick a different one, because when we planned this and I brought it up, producer Chris from WATP said, "Oh well, it's Jump." Like, he just, like, off the top of his head, he was just like, "It's obviously the worst song on that album." And I was like, "Is it? Is that monster hit that everybody knows and loves is the worst song on this album?" So
does he forget I'll Wait? Does he forget I'll Wait?
It kind of colored my opinion of re-listening to this. And I'll give you that I'll Wait just sounds like it's a different band, right? It's out of place on this album, but I like a lot of things that are departures on albums that give you a chance to catch your breath. But I see, and I've been struggling on saying this, whether or not this is the worst song on the album. But to your point, this is just the one that if I had to remove something off of this album that I wouldn't really care if it wasn't there or not, I have to go with Drop Dead Legs, only because
Whoa.
it starts like
Wow.
the riff of it is mundane to me, and by the time it gets to like the good stuff, I've kind of already checked out of the song. And we talked a lot about where it fits on the album, but it's just always been very forgettable to me.
Wow.
And I just feel like the primary riff of it is too much of a slog. If I'm really getting granular with why I'm putting it on the sideline, it's that it starts too average, and then it takes too long to get good. But that's just my opinion.
How dare you? That's the whole, that's the whole point of the show, and I like that we have different answers for different reasons. That's what makes art and music. There actually is no wrong answers.
I know. I thought we were both going to say Jump, right? I really do.
Well,
because all the way up until the end of the episode, I was like, it's either going to be Jump or it's going to be Drop Dead Legs, and then
interesting.
Talking it out, that's where I arrived.
I don't know if producer Chris will listen to this episode, but my response to him on that is like, I know what he's saying, and that's not a bad fact. If I'll Wait for whatever reason didn't exist on this album, and another version of Girl Gone Bad or House of Pain existed on this album, just whatever universe that was in. Yeah, Jump is, like I said, a Santa Sandman of this album, but I try to be objective. What I mean by that is, objectively speaking, it's not a boring song. Objectively speaking, it's a fun song. Like, you can't not listen to it you have to think about the first time listen. And even producer Chris, when he first heard the song, he didn't like it. He didn't like it. Of course, there was a young producer before he was a producer, when he was just a Chris. There was a time that he enjoyed the song. Now that's why I'll Wait is an easy pick, because I never enjoyed the song. It's never grown on me, and I've never liked it. So
that's fair.
Yeah, Jump, I can say objectively, of course I liked it. It's just I'm done with it, but not because it's a bad song, but I've moved on. Moved on. Yeah.
I think I'll Wait. I keep trying to push up my glasses. Is it's kind of incepted into me enjoying it by top 40 radio and growing up, over the years where radio playlists were how I discovered music, as, like I said, somebody that didn't have somebody telling me what's cool. All I can do is turn on the radio and listen to what the person that's doing the radio program is telling me is cool. And I'll Wait was all over that. So I think, just because of that, it has a place in my heart. Whereas I didn't get around to owning this album forever, so these lesser played songs like Drop Dead Legs and House of Pain, I'll Wait. With the fact that they put it on the radio, probably gave it a pass for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. Well, that's so awesome. Please, Andy, before you go, thank you so much for coming on the show and doing this with me. It's so much fun to talk to you. It's so much fun to podcast with, and tell people where they can hear your show.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been so much fun. I love Van Halen. I love Ryan. Ryan was just on All Apologies podcast, where we discussed Marilyn Manson and all the crazy shit that guy's gotten up to, defying expectations of good taste and whatever, consensual sex. But we basically take a look at celebrities that are have fucked up and go on apology tours. It's very much like WATP. We just find somebody at their lowest point and kick them while they're down in a comedic way. So
sure, of course,
please check that out. Of course, I'm on WATP, Who Are These Podcasts, with Carl. We're going to Vegas in just a week and a half. No, 2 weeks. Hackamania in Las Vegas on May 9th and through the 12th, and you can buy tickets to that virtually at hackmania.com or .live. But and then we're going to Boston too in June. So
It's crazy.
for these podcasts live in Boston, June 21st. Those tickets just went on sale today. Today's Friday here, but this will come out later, so they'll definitely be on sale. So please check that out. Please check out All Apologies podcast. If you want more Ryan, he did Mel Gibson with us and Marilyn Manson. All the heavy topics.
I know. Anti-Semitism and sexual assault. That was my yay me. That's so much fun to talk about.
We need a level-headed guy on there to help us figure it out.
I was like, oh man, hopefully I don't say anything pro, anti, or pro SA. I was like, I'm so careful.
I mean, it's all jokes, so you could always just explain. And it's a show about apologies, so you could just come on and apologize.
I apologize.
I definitely saw a few people commenting that definitely went to check it out just because you were on. So thank you for being a guest over there.
Oh, it was my pleasure, my treat. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And today for Ryan, it was I'll wait. And for Andy, remind me. Oh, yeah, drop dead leg. I still can't believe
you can't believe I said that.
I was about to say jump, but no, drop dead legs.
Yeah.